Hi and welcome to what is hopefully the last part of this particular Build With Me series. We've been building this metre tall RGB LED tower from Banggood. In the last episode we managed to get it completed to this stage, plugged it in, and it didn't go bang, it started working. We've got some tidying up to do, but also I've noticed that there's a few problems and errors that need a little bit of correcting. I just reset this. We can scan it along and you might be able to just pick up a bit of a problem. These couple of intermediate LEDs. Then up here we've got a ring that is showing the wrong color. Now I know what the issue is with this ring. One of the connections, I think I've bodged slightly and bridged a couple of the pins. And then somewhere earlier on in this where there was the two LEDs that weren't lighting up. That's because of a couple of joints that I missed out and aren't soldered at all. Handily, they provide you with a remote control with some instructions, and there is a test mode, in fact two test modes in this. So pressing this little arrowed key pointed at the remote allows me to cycle around all of the columns, and so we're able to see if any are not lit or intermediate, such as this one is. If I just move this little wire, we can see that it's a bit intermittent because of that. And the same with this, I can, by moving the little wire, so it's this joint here and here which are suspect. The other test mode, ironically using the test button, will just illuminate individual rings. And you cycle it all the way around and then bring it up with the different colours. And we've got one missing. Green isn't lighting up on this one. And I increment it. So I know the problem is with the green connection on this particular ring. So I shall just put a peg on to remind me that it is that. One, and then we'll get the camera in a bit closer and see what we need to fix. So here's a close-up of that particular joint that's causing us the problem. As you can see, it's been bridged. I don't happen to have any desoldering braid, so what I'm going to try and do is just, it's not going to be good for filming. Let's see if we can get a better angle. Let's see if that's worked for that one. They're looking a bit more consistently the same colour. Now we can turn our attention to somewhat further down where those two loose connections are, if we can find them. Here we go, we found the culprits. As you can see, I tap on this wire here, move it, and this little LED lights, or doesn't light, depending on the movement of it. And if I just turn the lights back on and turn this off, you most likely can see that we have got some joints here that haven't even been made. So when you're doing so many, it is really easy to overlook a joint or two, but it always will show through on the final product whether it works or not. So we just need to correct and add some solder to these particular joints. Looks like I've missed about 3 or 4. The filming may not be too great on these. Try my best not to block the view. Just by wiggling the wire above, you can see if there's any movement. Those seem to be fixed, so I'll just run a test on this again and see if that's all, or whether there's any other issues that perhaps need addressing. So I just thought I'd show you this. After fixing those problems, it's now working okay. It's got a handy test function on the remote. As you can see on the screen now, even though this is a bit of a sideways view, it enables me to get most of the tower in, along with the instructions for the little remote control itself. But it has 2 test modes. One of these is showing at the moment, namely the column. This is the column debugging, so every time you press the little sort of back key on the remote, it steps through each of the columns. And so you're able to visually check that they're all lighting up. And then of course it goes around one full circuit and then goes round again each time you press in the next color. And of course into the blue as well. Here's a bit of a closer view. And so you can check that each LED is lighting up on its column and in the right color as well. Then the other mode is the layer debugging. And on the remote it's the little button that's labeled test. So you press that, and now each layer does the same thing, coming up all the way in red. Got a lot more presses this time, it's 32. And then green, and again you can check that all of the columns are lighting up, all the layers are lighting up in the right color. So I've done a couple of runs of cable ties. I just wanted to show you what the difference was. So this is all nicely neat and cable tied, as you can see, moving all the way up. So which would you prefer, that or this mess of loose wires? I know which I prefer, and that is to tidy them up and just make them neat. So I'll show you now how I did this. So I just have some 2.5, or it might just be 2mm wide cable ties. And in order to make things easy for myself, I make a double bend in these. So you bend one over like that, and then we bend it over again. So it's a bit like that. This is done so it springs out into a U shape. I'll just bring it in a bit closer. Then we just poke this in and bring it back up. And what we do is I bring it up just using a pair of tweezers to bring it up in between the fibre and the wire that forms the supports for these. And then it's just a case of tightening it up. I don't tighten it up so it's gripping the wires. They're still loose within this. Cut it off flush. And then turn so the head of that cable tie is on the inside and not really seen, and then we can slide it down and just hold that down with that. I'm just giving a little bit of a tug on these wires just to get them into some sort of tidiness. And what I've been doing is I've been putting a cable tie in every other row or every other level. But before I do that, I'll take you down to the bottom end, and we put a cable tie on that end and then add a little bit of tension just to hold things neat. It makes things easier. So we're down here at the bottom. Now these wires are all very sort of spread out, so I just take one of the loose tails that I've cut off from one cable tie, and I just use that just to bring those up together. And we make sure that we're tying this onto the same area, the same fibre that's going up as the top, so that we keep everything nicely in line. Which I think I am. Yep. And again, I'm not tightening these up super tight. This one's a little bit more snug than the one at the top. And then what I do is just with my tweezers, I gently pull out each of these cables. Don't pull too hard on them, otherwise they will break, and repairing these is no easy task. There we go. we go. One final thing to do is just to plug some power in and make sure that everything is still lighting up with all the colours that it should, which it is. So basically, this project, this kit is now complete. It is working. I'm very pleased with it. It has some nice effects. As you can see, when you don't have any audio coming out of it, it actually only draws round about 1 amp, and so it's fine to be powered off a normal USB plug from the mains or from a battery bank. However, if you do decide to play music through it at any sort of audible volume, you'll find that you need a power supply that is capable of 3 amps, which is more than the standard USB sockets can provide. So just something to keep in mind. I know I said that this was probably going to be the last video about this project, and it probably is, but I'm actually planning to do one modification to this tower. There's just one thing that slightly bugs me about this particular kit, as opposed to the other version that Banggood sells of this, the one without PCBs, and I'll show you what that is. If I just get this up to the other end. It is this tip of the tower. These are not actually controlled by the microcontroller. These are just multicolor LEDs. So no matter what pattern is going on the main tower, these bear no relation to this. Now, on the version that comes without PCBs for all of these rings of LEDs, they describe putting more of these RGB LEDs up like this. So I intend to do something like that as a modification for this. This probably will not be the next video that I produce. There's a couple of other things I'm wanting to do, but as a future project I will change these top portion of LEDs and make them RGB and connect them in so that they in some way resemble what's happening in the main tower. But thank you so much for watching along. Appreciate you doing that. Please stay tuned for further projects. We thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.